Welcome to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. I'm Ted Bonnet.
And I'm Phil Proctor. Well, I'm sorry, it's raining out there. I've got to. I'm sorry, I had to get out of that water.
Well, we risked our life and limb for this show.
Yeah, we're broadcasting in the rain outside with an umbrella. What happens if the water hits the mic? Ellis, you know what I mean? Thank God there's no lightning storm.
Today we have with us, and the reason we came in is because Fritz Coleman's our guest, and weatherman Fritz Coleman. And Fritz, wanted to thank you for coming down to the station to answer some questions.
I'm honored to.
As
long as none of them involve meteorology, we're good.
Oh, great.
Because you don't know anything about meteors?
No, I relinquished my license, and by law, I can't answer any questions about it. If people ask me about weather, I say, look on your phone and never ask me.
I don't think you can use the word weather. If.
Well, there you go. We spent all that money for the green screen and everything. Can you do some gesturing at least?
Of course.
Okay.
Smooth gestures and a pleasant smile. 40 years. That's the gig. Vanna White with maps. There I am.
Right. That's right. And of course, you started as a stand-up comic.
That's exactly correct.
Right. How did you get from stand-up comic to a really revered weatherman? You were on the air, 32 years?
40.
40 years.
I retired 2 weeks shy of my 40th anniversary.
Wow, an NBC.
So this is a true story, but real
Who will be the judge of
meteorologists
that?
hate this story.
Okay.
So I came out here in 1980 to do comedy, and I worked my way up to being a paid regular, such as it was at the Comedy Store. Mm-hmm. And my friend that worked at NBC, he was a reporter and an anchor man at NBC, brought his boss, who was the news director at the time, and his boss's wife down to see me do a show at the store on a Friday night.
Cool.
And so I talked on stage about having started my broadcasting career in Armed Forces Radio and Television. And while I was in the Navy, I was forced to do the weather against my will.
Oh, really?
And the fact that I knew nothing about weather didn't seem to faze the Defense Department. They didn't care.
Not.
Just make sure your shoes are shined, and please don't use profanity on the air. That's all it was. So I told this.
That's the same rule here.
It's the same.
Yeah. Damn it is.
So.
Oh, sorry.
I did the show, and I went backstage afterwards to meet this man, Steve Antonetti, God rest his soul. I'll never forget him in my career. And he said, this is a very odd question, but do you have any desire to come to Channel 4 and do some vacation relief and vacation fill-in work for me? I've got a Maine weatherman who was Kevin O'Connell, the guy that took Pat Sajak's place. He hasn't had a vacation in a year. I need some help down there. Yeah. Would you have any desire? And I was making $25 a set, as you know, at the Comedy Store, and I almost passed out. I said, when do you want me to start? And may I carry your wife to the car? Is there anything I can... So he said, well, you have to audition. And I said, okay. I said, you do remember me saying from the stage that I don't know anything about weather. He said, perfect. There's no weather in California. This will work out great.
Right. No weather in California.
So I did the vacation relief and the fill-in work for 2 years. And then I was bumped up to the main weather job. And I am just the beneficiary of the greatest amount. I always say that my life was the greatest amount of luck since that woman was discovered at Schwab's Pharmacy in the 40s.
Yeah, right.
And I'm very fortunate.
Well, this maybe is why I've always heard that, weather in L.A. is a joke.
Yeah.
Well, but the thing is, Fritz, it's not just L.A. You got the desert, You got the mountains.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. The people understand, particularly people from Chicago, who are very protective of the fact that they have the worst weather in the United States, and you don't have any. You don't know how you call drizzle a storm. Yes, well, technically it is a storm. But you have 9 climates out here. You have the northern and southern coast. Yeah. You have the coastal and inland valleys. You have the northern and southern mountains, and you have the upper and lower desert. And all of those people in Apple Valley don't give a crap what the weather is in Brentwood. Right. They want to know what it is in their town.
And the reason is because people in Apple Valley aren't getting rain today. They didn't get it yesterday.
No, that's the thing. I mean, you can have. That's why they came up with a system. What do you mean by a 30% chance of rain? Yeah. And that's just a cover your bases forecast. That means that wherever you are in our viewing area,
it could be raining.
There's a 30% chance that you'll get wet. Yeah, right. And there's a 70% chance you won't, but we choose to say 30%.
Yeah, and that is a tricky thing about the weather forecasting in LA, because when you read the National Weather Service forecast, they're trying to average 6 microclimates.
No, that's exactly what they're doing. And
that's-
not only that, when we have something, well, you could have drizzle in L.A. and it can be catastrophic. First of all, it can be just the 0.4 of an inch of rain. You need to topple that oak tree under your car.
Yeah.
Because the roots have been wet for 3 years.
That's right.
And haven't had a chance to dry out. People don't know how to drive on the freeways out here, so it can just be a minor spritz, and people and people can drive too fast and not slow down. So we have a lot of interesting,
especially if it doesn't rain for months and months and months.
No, exactly. You get that residue on the freeways.
The oil,
no, that's exactly what it is.
The emissions, it's like ice.
There's another thing about L.A. When I was first out here with this play, The Amorous Flea, which came from New York, a great musical, I was living in the Hollywood area. The play was at Las Palmas, and I lived in like a little apartment on Vista Del Mar. View of the sea? No. View of the concrete. And I had the afternoons off, so I walked over to the Egyptian Theater to watch a movie. And in the film, there was a thunderstorm in the plot. And I noticed the water was coming down on me on my seat here in the theater. And I looked and I saw that water had run all the way down the aisle to the exits on either side of the screen. Wow. And there was a garbage can floating in water there. And there's a thunderstorm going on the screen. I said, my God, smell-o-vision, and now rain-o-vision.
No pressure-o-vision.
So I get up and I walked out to the lobby, and there's a chandelier in the lobby, and it's pouring water.
Wow.
Water, and they've got pans out and everything. I realized in California, it never rained, so you never had to fix your roof.
No, exactly.
Right?
These things don't present themselves until there's catastrophic amounts of rain.
And everybody always says, you people in California. And, well, the fact of it is, when I moved from New York, I didn't understand that either. But then I started telling my friends back east, California has... you have 350 days of absolute paradise, and then you have 15 days of biblical cataclysm.
Right, right.
and because you have this Pacific Ocean that brings incredible amounts of moisture. So a rainstorm in California is a different animal.
And you just brought up a great point. People would say, why? I mean, you had satellites and Dopplers and all this stuff. Why do you get it wrong so often?
Yeah.
I said, because weather comes west to east in the northern hemisphere, out of the Gulf of Alaska, and southeast down, Northern California first, us last. And weather acts differently over water than it does over land. So we look at it out in the ocean, and we say, okay, well, it seems to have this personality. But when it hits the topography of Southern California, the mountains and everything, and it upslopes and does all kinds of stuff, it acts differently. So we take a good shot at it. The people east of us, like when the weather comes ashore in California and it's acted a certain way over land, by the time it gets to Phoenix and then Chicago and then New York, people can see it coming over land, and it's a little more solid forecast.
Yeah. And you're right. It's like the diversity, topography, and climate is wonderful about LA. I mean, it's just you can drive a half an hour into Malibu and you're in another world.
Yeah.
And because of the mountains and all, it changes everything.
And when the moisture hits the mountains, we have coastal mountains. It's even worse in Santa Barbara. That's why they get flooding up there, because they have the San Ynez Mountains right next to the water, and it upslopes there, and that's why you get insane amounts of water right by the coast. So,
well, for me, when we get into this weather. All I do is because of the localized forecasts are sort of impossible, I just look at the radar on the National Weather Forecast.
That's all you have to do.
And you just see what's coming at you in the moment.
You get a radar app.
Here comes the band.
Seriously.
So this, and speaking as someone who's not a meteorologist, let me ask you a question about weather. I mean, let's put it this way, anecdotally at least, all the 30 years you did weather forecasting here in the market, have you ever seen... Has the character of the weather intensified in your view?
Yes. People, I do speaking engagements, and I do a question and answer period at the end of the speaking engagements. And the single most frequent question I get is, do you believe in climate change? And I say, I do believe in climate change. There are two areas of discussion in climate change. You can believe in the fact that the climate is changing, or are you asking me if there's man-made climate change?
Right.
And I say, well, I believe there is, But I'm not an expert in that area. I don't work at JPL or anything, but I can tell you that things have changed. And here's what I know from doing the weather for 30 and 40 years. All of the measuring points of weather, temperature, barometer, wind speed, everything has become exaggerated and metastasized and accelerated. And I don't know if it's a frequent thing, like a millennial thing every 1,000 years we get there. I don't know the answer to that question. But I can tell you, over the last 10 years, we've broken every major record weather in the United States.
That's right.
Amount of rain, frequency of tornadoes, severity of tornadoes, frequency of hurricanes, severity of hurricanes, rainfall amounts.
Heat.
Insane heat up
Around
in
the
Seattle.
entire world.
Yeah, and in the Pacific Northwest, which you're familiar with, and your friends are familiar with. I mean, they had it was in Seattle or in Portland. There was 105 degrees for the first time in recorded history.
And nobody had air conditioning.
Yeah. And so everything is changing now. When you want to get into an explanation of that, I'm not qualified to answer. But I do think here's how I end my discussion, and I'll finish with this. I say, but if we're not sure how much of it is man-made, shouldn't we protect ourselves in case some of it is? Yeah. I mean, can't we have electric cars? Can't we go to non-carbon-oriented fuels just to be safe, just to do our part? Yeah. So if it turns out, at least we tried. It's like having a child, and he turns out to be a juvenile delinquent and has many felonies. But I tried as a father. I did what I could, and so some of it is not my responsibility.
Well, I know that it's human made because this condition is caused by the baby, El Nino. Mm-hmm. The little Latino baby who's heated up the water out there and causing all this havoc. So now that's
that's where El Nino came from, and you're exactly right about that. Yeah. It was El Nino. The before they had scientific analysis of it, started off the coast of South America, where every 7 or 8 years the fishermen down there noticed that they were getting a bounty of fish that didn't normally dwell in those waters, like types of tuna and all that kind of stuff, because the waters were warmer. El Nino is temperatures being 1 or 2 degrees warmer than normal, and La Nina is the opposite, where temperatures are
lower. Which they say we're going towards. Yeah. Did you? Last question about weather. I promise.
It's all right.
Did you ever have terminology like atmospheric rivers back in your day?
No. When I started, it was called the Pineapple Express.
Oh yeah.
Still isn't like in Hawaii.
And I can give you this fact now because I'm no longer a practicing weatherman, so I can tell you the truth.
You were practicing all the time you were doing it.
Yes, I was practicing.
Did you ever get it right? No, I don't think so.
We never got to tech rehearsal. They want terminology that scares the crap out of you.
Right.
A Pineapple Express sounds like a juice bar at the food court. Let's go to the Pineapple Express for a smoothie. No, wait, you need atmospheric river. You're going to be up the atmospheric river without a paddle if you don't sandbag your home.
Yeah.
So quite honestly, it's the technology in forecasting weather is advancing. They have all these satellites. They have infrared photography. They can see how much moisture is in a pocket of air. And so we do have these atmospheric rivers, which have always been there. We just didn't know how to describe it.
So the term atmospheric river is more of a branding for something that has existed.
Yes. We used to have areas 2 or 3 times a year of extremely cold, dry air, but that's not good. That doesn't scare people. So now we have the polar vortex. Yeah. And it sounds like you don't want to be caught in the polar vortex with your family because you'll never be heard from again.
I did voices for that movie.
Yeah. The other one, which I love, is a bomb cyclone. That was a big one.
Oh, yeah.
A bomb cyclone is just rapidly dropping low pressure. Yeah. A bomb cyclone sounds like something we should be lobbing at the Houthis.
Yeah, that's right. Go into the shelter.
Yeah, seriously.
Wow.
Anyway.
You do a podcast with Louise Palanker.
Right.
Called, what is it called?
Media Path.
Yeah, Media Path. And you're talking about media.
Yeah. Well, we came up with a name because what we do is, Weezy and I have been friends for years. She produced one of my one-person shows 30 years ago.
I didn't know that. Great.
And we are of similar minds when it comes to stuff. We love documentary films, we love new films, we love books, and we talk a lot. And she said, well, why don't you come on and we'll just do a show about the stuff you and I talk about anyway. So we start each show with giving suggestions of newly released media stuff like streaming or cable or books or music. And for instance, the one we did last week was I did the MLK Malcolm X new series of documentaries, part of the Genius series on Nat Geo, produced by Ron Howard's company. I don't know if the one they did on Picasso and Einstein was unbelievable. And this is like this is a really good one. It's like they do a split screen between both of their lives.
Wow.
And although they were of different minds on how to accomplish black equality, Martin Luther King was he was the
vanguard.
He was the vanguard, and he was the Gandhi. He wanted to know,
Absolutely.
but and
Manhattan is off to him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Malcolm was by any means necessary, including whatever it took,
Yep.
So anyway, they did this thing. So that was my offering. She did one about a book, and then we had a guest on. We had a great guest last week who was the director of this new Rob Reiner film called God and Country, which is about the rise
Christian nationalism
of metastasizing of Christian nationalism, and it's a fantastic film. So that's what we do.
Where's that available?
It's being released I think it's going to be at the Landmark Theater like next weekend in Westwood.
Good for them.
But also it's going to stream somewhere. But
it's such an interesting time. I mean, it's so weird.
This is a beautiful film. It's so it's thoughtful. It doesn't bash Christianity. And as a matter of fact, the director makes a great comment at the beginning. This is not anti-Christian. This is not telling you not to allow your faith to dictate your politics. It's when you entwine the two and you can't tell the difference between one and another.
Smart.
Speaking of which, I mean, you had eggs at lunch, and I was thinking, whose children are those eggs?
Oh, when I had the scrambled eggs.
Yeah, the scrambled eggs, because we're talking, of course, about Alabama.
And
their insane ruling.
I had scrambled people.
Yeah, that embryos now have personable rights.
Yeah.
And personage. And
scrambled chickens.
And this is a direct, and there was a lot of Christian terminology in the law or whatever we want to call it. It'll of course be challenged, but this is what's going on. This is the question.
It is. They picked the current fight. The current weapon is abortion. Mm-hmm. But going back. They always say that the Tea Party movement was a reaction to Obama, but it was they never spoke the quiet part out loud.
That's
It's
right.
always been based on racism.
Yes.
So part of the Christian nationalist movement started after Brown v. Board, when white people wanted to have private schools for their kids, not to give them a better education, and they would never say it this way, but it was to take kids out of schools with African-American children.
Right.
So it was all based on racism. And they go through this, and they have very scholarly people. They have ex-evangelists. And there's one of the, I don't know who said it, but it's worth watching the movie for this. This guy said, Why has Donald Trump been picked as God's choice to run this movement? And they said, because if you look at his presentation and the way he dresses and his hair, he's like a televangelist. His delivery is like a televangelist. The way he dresses, the way he asks for money, it's all like one of those guys, Jimmy Swaggart. And I thought, wow, that's brilliant.
He has a scandalous life, like all the televangelists.
No, they like many of them, absolutely. And I thought, God, that's brilliant. That personality seems familiar to those people because they're used to watching them for 4 hours on a Sunday morning.
That's all
Very
well
good
and fine.
point.
But what bugs me about it is that we're all compelled to pay for this because they have tax-exempt status.
That's what kills me.
I thought the agreement was you don't cross the church and state line.
Exactly. And I asked this of the director. I said, I thought that if you spoke politics from the pulpit, your church would lose your tax-exempt status. He said that started going away with the guy from Liberty University. What was his name?
Pat Robertson.
Pat Robertson, because he's the guy that got out there and he wanted to be the spokesman for this new moral majority.
That's right.
And that's when it started, and he was never taken to task for it. And I thought, and sometimes, and they have clips in there where ministers say, I don't want Democrats in this church. If a Democrat comes into this church, it's because the devil made his way in here. And I thought, oh my God.
Yes, oh my God.
Unbelievable.
Oh, who's God?
This is sort of a perversion of the deregulatory
No, it
past
really
we've
is.
had, because I just watched, it's going away on Netflix soon, Vice.
Yeah.
Christian Bale playing.
That was brilliant.
I just watched it again. It's so prescient because if you watch Vice now, you see the groundwork being laid for what's going on right now.
Yeah, the neocons and all that stuff.
And one of the many, many beautiful things Adam McKay wrote, when he wrote this thing, one of the things he mentions is that by blowing out the fairness doctrine, Reagan, by blowing out the broadcast fairness doctrine, gave birth to Fox News and the politicization of information.
Absolutely.
And look what it has done.
Yeah, absolutely.
No
more, you didn't, the equal time provision when you had a political ad, you had to follow it by a one of equal length from the opposing party. Forget about it.
And I started when that was still happening. So I had to be, as a broadcaster, I had to be very careful about the information I disseminated because I knew that anyone could call and challenge me.
Right.
So you were trying to avoid the challenges by being balanced. So it was a self-policing environment that went away.
Yeah. It's all under the umbrella of the Reagan deregulation.
Yeah.
And I work for the Salvation Army, and they have a big homelessness mandate where they investigate it and try to find solutions for it. And they did this survey, and it said the top 3 reasons for homelessness are number 1, mental health, number 2, drug addiction, and number 3, rent.
Yep.
Which is mind-blowing.
And the Supreme Court just disallowed the ability of somebody. They actually took away rent control in California and New York. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well, they overrode.
Just today.
No. Today?
Yeah.
What? Wow. What happened?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to find it on my iPhone. Because I can't remember anything without my iPhone.
They did the landlord movement did override the municipalities here in L.A. In California on the state level, and that's what has restricted rent control laws. And there was an article, I think, in one of the big papers yesterday about Hudson Valley, New York. And this is a fairly depressed area. It's not a garden spot, and especially in terms of architecture and homes and all that. And these people are being blown out. $2,000 for a month for a bedroom.
No.
And it's just this unfettered, soulless greed, this spiral. And it's I don't know how
100%.
People,
But the Reagan thing, and not deregulation, he just dismantled the whole public mental health care system in the state where we had places like Porterville, and they had places that were mandated by the state where people could get the help they need, and they're not in jail for drug addiction. They're being treated in a mental health facility. So that whole thing is a nightmare.
And making the police be,
yes, and not trained for it, and not trained for mental health work.
Well, we have a lot of improvement to make. But
we don't have all day to solve these problems.
No.
Let's get on.
No, but you can help support conversations like this on a station like this.
This is Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show, and I'm Phil Proctor.
I'm Phil Proctor.
I'm Ted Bonnet.
You're Ted Bonnet.
Yeah,
and I'm not Ted Bonnet.
Yeah, help us out.
And we have Fritz Coleman, who is Fritz Coleman. Although when you were a DJ, you had another name.
I was my boss. Can I tell this story?
Yeah, I think you can tell it. Sure.
My boss, when I was in Buffalo, New York, and I was a DJ, my name is Fritz, which is I'll give you the story of my name so you realize that I don't have that much an emotional attachment to the name. But all the men in my father's side of the family were named Frederick. And my grandfather were 50% German in my family, but in the 1700s, not in...
Gee, that's almost half.
Not in Third Reich era, know. But he would call me Fritz because Fritz in German means little Frederick. And my grandfather would call me Fritz to distinguish me from my father, whose name was actually Frederick.
Like a junior, right?
That's all it is, right? So, but he hated, my boss in Buffalo, New York, hated that name because he said, Fritz sounds like a Nazi camp guard. Nobody working on my radio station is going to call himself Fritz. No,
Fritz.
So I came up with two other parts of my name. J was my first initial, and then Frederick was my middle name. And so that's the.
You were J. Fred Muggs?
God bless him. Back when TV was good,
Yeah.
J. Fred.
How many people out there in the audience remember J. Fred Muggs and Dave Galloway?
Dave Garroway.
Dave Garroway.
Oh, wow.
Early morning show host in New York.
Really funny, Yeah, funny.
So but your name was J. Frederick?
J. Frederick, right. My name is J. Frederick Coleman.
Okay.
And so I just,
Fredericks,
so
the department store.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
well, I used to call myself Fredericks of Hollywood on the air.
Yeah.
That was my.
Oh, very good.
so you really are, you were weatherman on NBC 4 here in LA for 39 years. But what you really wanted to do was stand-up and comedy.
Well, I did it. I honestly, for two reasons, took the job in L.A. One is that there's no weather, and I couldn't embarrass myself that much. And second of all, because I could still work as a comic. And even when I was doing the weather, I did the 5, 6, and 11 o'clock news. Between the early and late news, I would go do a set at the Comedy Store, the Improv. I was doing 2 or 3 sets a week.
Really?
And going back, as long as there was no, we didn't have what we're having today.
You weren't taking barometric readings? Or
No.
Oh, my goodness.
Absolutely
Wow.
not. Listen, my whole job as a weatherman on TV in L.A. was to learn how to suffer public humiliation gracefully. That's it. Just apologize for your mistakes, and it's all.
But weather was always the dream gig for local news.
Yeah.
Because
Well, it wasn't as important back then until climate change.
Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier. Weather didn't occupy that much of a face in the news. I always said that my job as a weatherman during calm weather was to be the palate cleanser between the tragedy and the sports.
That's right. Because and they actually programmed for that because they were trying to appeal to the entire demographic pie in the news hour.
Yeah.
And so the weatherman, the weather forecaster was always appealing to the old ladies. Right,
Yes.
so they would always look to hire like Storm Fields.
Yes.
They'd always try to hire a young, nice boy.
It was the least threatening part of a newscast, so you could smile and deliver it with a little warmth. No, you're 100% right.
And here, by the way, here it is. Supreme Court turns down property rights challenge to rent control in New York and California, which is going to affect the way that landlords can now,
Boy, especially in
negatively.
California. Holy cow.
Negatively.
Well, it's a negative. So far as I know, I haven't read the whole thing. Who reads?
I mean, there's some
just
people that
read
couldn't
the
afford to
headlines.
live here without rent control.
Well, not everybody can have a $300,000 motor coach like Clarence,
Like the homeless do.
Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, Clarence Thomas.
Did you see the John Oliver show on Sunday night?
brilliant.
Oh, it was so
See,
funny.
that was
Did you hear about that?
No, I have a house guest who is actually a guest in our studio, Dan Christ. Say hello, Dan. Hi, everybody.
Hello,
There
Dan.
he is.
He represents the Great Pacific Northwest.
That's right, and he's a radio guy.
He's just scoffing at our talk
old-time
about this
radio
rain.
guy, and he has been occupying my full time. So I don't know what's happening in the world.
In answer to what we were talking about, the media scape and how bleak it is.
Right.
The good side of it is we have really, truly brilliant cut-through information, breakthrough information from John Oliver. Jon Stewart's back.
Yeah.
He's doing a great job. So it's not.
I love John Oliver because you learn something as well as laugh hard at the way he sort of accents everything.
It's a real public service.
You got to see it. He offered
one focus.
He offered a check to Clarence Thomas for $1 million if he would retire.
A year.
Whoa!
He said a year. He said, and it's not HBO paying for it. I'll pay for it. I'll pay you $1 million a year if you'll retire. And then he goes out in the garage and he said, plus we'll kick in this $2.5 million motor coach.
Oh no! Oh my God!
I don't know. Did he ever? If Clarence Thomas had a soul, he'd respond to it because it's. Do you feel in the current receding intelligence level in the United States that your group, and it was so smart. I compare it to Mike Nichols and Elaine May. It was current topics, current topics, and an intelligent satire about things that are happening in people's lives. I mean, first of all, you have the general intelligence level, and I'm not being superior. I'm just talking about what people react to in clubs or in books or in movies.
Right.
And also the shortening in American attention span.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Do you feel like it would be harder for you to carve out the same space now if you?
Yeah, I yes and no. I think that if the entire group was alive, we lost, God bless him, Peter Bergman and Phil Austin. Dave Osman and I, we're still funny, but we're only half as funny. We're half the wits of the Firesign Theater. The Firesign Theater was a very unique combination of four like-minded people, all of whom had a surrealistic love of comedy, like the Goon shows, really far out, brain connecting, brain exercising comedy.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
And the fact that we could do a long form of comedy, we created long form comedy albums. Was something that people really reveled in. The people who got what we were doing enjoyed very much bringing over friends and putting on a 20-minute comedy album, and turning the lights down and getting stoned and entering it and being part of it. And we took them on this ride. Well, today, if you really look at what's going on, there are people who, like Trump, who are so satirical, so surrealistic, so insanely comedic that there's no room for a jester anymore. They are satirizing themselves. As you pointed out, he is very much like an evangelistic preacher, and he touches the same audience because they've already been conditioned to respond a certain way to that. What really has happened to the world that was not happening when Firesign was doing what we were doing, a lot of which was deprogramming. We were trying to deprogram people from commercialism and from what commercialism did to the way you think, the way you saw things, okay? Because commercialism and television for the first time, radio for the first time sent out propaganda to people's homes and could reach all these people. Hitler used radio absolutely brilliantly to propagandize the German nation. And, as he often said, if you say a lie often enough, people will believe it. Well, that's the idea of commercials, too. If you smell bad. Well, I don't smell bad. Well, maybe you will smell bad. So, buy this deodorant. And today, most of the propaganda is now fragmented so that people are talking to their various audiences. Well, that means we've lost that whole audience. When we were doing records, those records were meant for people to take home and listen to privately or share with friends in a dorm room or something. We never dreamed that they would be broadcast. But then FM radio came along, and suddenly the entire metric changed, and we reached even more people, and we were able to reach an intelligent audience that was out there that was hungry for this kind of satirical comedy.
And before you got to the point of putting it on a record, the atmosphere in clubs and places for you to grow this material was different. It was more free form then too.
Very definitely so.
The Lenny Bruces and the George Carlins had to have a free space to be able to grow this new form.
They were the pioneers.
Yeah.
They led the way.
And I just I don't know that we would have that now.
I don't think so. Fraser Smith's going to be on the show soon, and he's out in the comedy world. You're still out in the comedy world.
Yeah.
Now, when you do, I know you do a wonderful one-man show, right? And what are you doing at the El Portal right now?
I call it a residency, for lack of a better term. We've just been extended for the second time. I'm there once a month through May. We're there this Sunday, February 25th, and I do a show. I have an opening act for 15 minutes, and then I do about an hour and 15 minutes, which is just the perfect length of time when people in my particular demographic, old people and their parents, have to use the bathroom. So, so I it's an hour and a half show, but it's a lot of fun. And I.
What are your topics? What are you talking
about?
Well,
I developed this thing for myself that seemed to work for myself years ago, and I made this title up. I don't know if it exists anywhere else. A single topic monologue, For instance, the first one-man show.
John Oliver.
Yeah. Well, without $500,000
of course,
writers.
big budget.
But the first one I did was about being a dad from a dysfunctional family, and then I did one about divorce, and then I did one about the news business, and this is my second one about being old. So not every single piece of material is about being old, but it's how an older person, somebody my age, a boomer,
Perceives the world.
is perceiving the world now. It's a lot of fun. And it's easier to write jokes when it's about one topic.
Yeah,
Do you find the boomers, are they coming out?
They absolutely are. We've been extended twice for this particular run. And I'm in the smaller theater. I'm in the Marilyn Monroe Forum, which is 100 seats, and that's perfect for me.
Great. Yeah.
So,
Do you have a grill with the dress? I mean, do you wear the dress?
yes. No, I wear that.
Oh, I see. With a fan underneath it.
Well, the reason they call it the Marilyn Monroe Theater, an interesting piece of Southern California lure, is right across the parking lot from the El Portal is North Hollywood Elementary School, where Marilyn was a student. And so that's why. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I worked in the Marilyn Monroe Theater in Hollywood. And what's the name of that studio? Who started the Actors Studio? Strasberg.
Yeah.
At the Lee Strasberg Theater, there is a Marilyn Monroe Theater. And I did a play there called L.A. Deli by Sam Bobrick many years ago. So we have that in common.
Yeah.
Marilyn, that slut, she's all over the place. Anyway, well, but did you, you don't do stand-up now with a bunch of other stand-up comics?
No, I do the clubs occasionally.
You do? What's the atmosphere out there?
I'm so old. I just feel like a chaperone when I work the clubs now. I have nothing to say to 25-year-olds who are trying to get laid. I really, I've had some experience. I've made some bad mistakes, and I would like to talk about those. It's a cathartic experience for me.
And teaching those kids something to avoid, right?
So I do the clubs occasionally, but I like the longer form.
But you're absolutely right that most of the topics of the clubs now are about dating and hooking up.
Yeah.
They're about hooking up.
Because people are afraid of the divide.
Oh, yeah, that's a thing. I don't do political stuff, and for two reasons. First of all, the shelf life of current events material is very short.
Very true.
Second of all, people are so hyper politically correct now, you don't even have to do a punchline. If you just say Donald Trump on stage, you'll hear, ooh. I knew we were in a bad place when Jerry Seinfeld, who is probably the cleanest, most centrist comic working, said, I don't want to do colleges anymore because they're too sensitive.
I remember that. That was a while ago, too.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, but I'm an internal optimist. There is a lot of things still happening. I mean, Firesign Theater wasn't a mass appeal comedy. It appealed to a smaller select sector of.
That's right. And it was for those of people who don't know what Firesign Theater is, four-man satirical comedy group that started in the late 60s on the radio, all over the radio here in town.
In this station.
Yeah, right here in KPFK. And we actually started in the parking lot where this building now stands, because that was where the original KPFK station was. And they tore it down and built a parking lot and then built this nice new big building, which has now been sold out from under our feet. So, and life goes on. But Firesign Theater started here, and actually it may even end here for all I know.
I think the things are so strange. The divide is so intense. We are one old man health crisis away from having a very frightening scenario. Yeah. It's scary times, and usually that really cultivates great humor. Kimmel and Colbert and Seth Meyers are doing incredible work.
They're the jesters of the nation.
And John Oliver, Jon Stewart, they're all out there. But those three guys are doing it like 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
And that's a reason why other comedians in the clubs don't do it, because it's being done about as well as it can be done
very
on
true.
TV.
As good as it gets.
Yeah.
And what they're really doing, because the news environment has been so fractured and compromised, that a lot of people, we've been reading this for years, that many, many people get their primary news from comedians because they can't deal with the temperature.
Too depressing.
Yeah. And we were talking on the way over. I don't listen to commercial radio, but I wanted to hear what was going on with the weather, so I listened to KNX on the way over here for the hourly and the spots leading up. It was just ugly. It was ugly and dark and full of fear, both commercial and editorially.
Yeah, they were talking about a $50,000 BMW that had spots on the hood from the rain.
Oh, and was it an attorney?
Part of the storm watch. Oh, of
Yeah, it was
course.
attorney ad, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I was on jury service last week, I was there.
You were actually in jury jail.
Yeah,
from
I was.
the stories you told me about.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you for your not service.
I was fulfilling my duty of keeping the litigation industrial complex alive by having high-powered lawyers milking easy targets.
Oh,
and
the story you tell about
for
that's
big
hysterical.
money.
But you can't talk about it now because
can't talk about it because the trial's still going on. But when it's over,
Yeah.
You'll hear some hair-raising stories.
yeah.
All right. So anyway, to cut to the end of what you're saying, there was a place for us, and we were not highly political. In fact, we were more anarchistic, if you will. We didn't take sides, which allowed us to expose what was crazy about politics in general, if you will. Although we did break the president. You know, we predicted that Nixon would be tossed out and things like that. And we were futurists. We used the vehicle that we had and the ears that we found out there to talk about what might happen because of how we were living now.
I wasn't even talking, when I asked you that question, I wasn't talking about your ability to do the political stuff. It's just the ability to use your brain.
And to reach other brains.
And do the long form stuff that you guys were so good at. People are saying we have the short American attention span. Yeah. That killed the news when they gave people a clicker. And when I started the 5 o'clock news, I had 5 minutes of time at 5 o'clock, and then over time it was whittled down to a minute and a half or 2 minutes because people are home doing this, and they're so deathly afraid that you're going to bore them for 10 seconds.
We predicted that in our best-selling album, "Don't Crush That Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers," where we basically invented surfing, channel surfing. Click, click.
That's right.
You know, we used it as a comedic tool and as a dramatic tool to be able to go from one place instantly to another, which is what was happening in people's homes, even though they had to walk up to the television and go "Tskunk," you know. And we knew it was going to affect the way people thought.
and then you multiply that by unlimited channels.
Oh my God!
And
Procter and Bergman, we predicted that in what was the name of that album? TV or Not TV. We predicted there were going to be hundreds of channels, you know, but I didn't realize there would be thousands.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but when we did when we were producing hourly newscasts, network hourly newscasts, I mean, we had to tell. We had the A block and the B block is what it's called. And the first 90 seconds of like a CBS hourly newscast is 90 seconds long. I mean, things may have changed. And we knew that most of the affiliate stations would tune out for after that. And so we had to say what was going on in the world in 90 seconds. Then we had a luxurious 2.5 minutes in the B block to do, a little kicker to make people feel good and, maybe something insightful for 20 seconds. And that was the world as represented. It was really a great lesson in information efficiency.
Yes.
But that's what, speaking of media, that's where I learned the concept that, like a river, the more shallow it is, the faster it is. The deeper it is, the slower it is.
That's a good point.
So when we're now this was pre-cable, so we're doing hourly newscasts. People depended on hourly newscasts, right? So we were fast. We were the fastest news delivery system out there, but by necessity, we were also the most shallow. And then you would wait for the next day for the New York Times to come out and have a nice deep look at it.
And that's a wonderful point. And one of the things that people complain to me the most about the news because they feel like I'm going to deliver this information to somebody who can make a difference. I don't know anybody above the second floor, but the shortening American attention span is really a disservice to people because what it does is the important topic, the A block topic. It's in the A block because it's somebody deemed it the most important story of the day. So that should have,
some in-depth reporting.
It should have some in-depth reporting, and common sense says it should have a little time to breathe.
Right.
No, it's a minute or a 90 seconds, and then you're out, and it doesn't even do the topic service.
Well, it's like I said before when we were talking. It's like it's even the nightly newscasts now, the half hours. It's all rhyme, no reason. There's no time for reason. If you watch maybe a PBS NewsHour, you get some reason.
Yeah.
But when you're so hyper accelerated like that, it's all rhyme, clicks, fear, bad news, and no time for reason or any kind of digestion.
And that's really bad news because
100%.
because since we're now living in these news bubbles, the people who want to watch Fox TV all the time will not watch any mainstream television.
To me,
especially not
that's the
if it-
scariest aspect of where we are right
Yeah.
now. For instance, the 1/6 testimony on television, which was riveting and I think of great value to clear-thinking Americans.
Yeah.
But the people who should see that information, that might have their minds changed or siloed off on Fox or
Stay away
Newsmax,
from it.
nobody even knew that was occurring.
That's right. But what I'm also saying is that since the news that people of intelligence are watching has been adumbrated and and degraded in its terms of its presentation and what it talks about, it's not doing a fair job for those of us who really want to know what the reality is.
There's out there, but it's
It's still entertainment,
Yeah.
They're trying to scare us, or they're trying to amuse us, And but at the same time, anybody with intelligence who's watching this is going like, "Oh my God! Look what's happening!"
Well, it's going to be. Besides the scary part of the danger involved, this is going to be the most entertaining year.
Oh, yeah.
there
There's some
you go.
satisfaction to Donald Trump still being in the line of fire as he's going down.
I can't believe we're still talking about this guy.
Yeah, that's what he lives for.
I know. I'm just so flabbergasted.
Entertainment.
Well, speaking
He's
of
very
which,
entertaining. Yes.
this was so entertaining. We're out of time.
Oh
man! And
great! Thank you for coming back,
man,
Fritz.
it was such a
Fritz
great. It was a great
Coleman.
conversation about many things, and I love you guys. And keep up the good work.
I want to come see your Boomer show.
You'll come and see it.
Tell
Ted
us,
and I can see
where
it.
can people see your show?
It's at the El Portal Theater. It's this iconic old theater.
In what part of town?
In North Hollywood on
Right.
Lancashire Boulevard. It's right across the street from the Lamely Theater.
Beautiful
And it's they started as a vaudeville house. Bob Hope, Red Buttons all performed there.
I didn't
then
know
it
that.
became a movie house. And
So it's the name of the theater is.
El
El
Portal
Portal.
Theater. Go to elportaltheater.com. Get tickets. We'll be there through May.
Will you come back?
Anytime.
Thanks
You've
for
been listening
inspiring
to
us.
Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. I'm Ted Bonnet.
I'm Phil Proctor. Our guest today, Fritz Coleman, and our guest in the studio, Dan Christ.
We'll see you
Chris.
We'll see you next week. Thanks
Love
so
you.
much for listening.
Stay dry.